Welcome to the Midwest Blitz. It's college football comfort food for the Midwest soul. Now, here are your hosts, Coach Drew and Big Nick.
Welcome to another edition of the Midwest Blitz with Coach Drew and Big Nick. Yeah, yup.
Yeah, yup.
Big Nick's in a great mood today because his team, Indiana, is sitting in a nice area, which we're going to go into right now. As we talked about before, the AP, the way we cover it is like a horse track. Imagine your horses are running around. Some horses got called back to the farm, Penn State, and aren't going to be participating no more in the race. Well, here we go. Number one, the Ohio State, is still on top of the map, and they go against Penn State. We're going to get into that in our next episode. Remember, this is the recap for Week 8. We have number 2, Indiana. We have number 6, Oregon. Hoosiers. We have Oregon, number 6. They went up 2. We also have, as I'm scrolling through here, we have Notre Dame at 12. They moved up 1 slot. Then our next team that we also cover in here is Illinois and rounding it out is Michigan 25. Both those teams are not ranked last week. If there was a 26 slot, we don't really talk about it, but Southern Cal is sitting there at the 26 slot, holding it over. So with that being said, Nick, would you like to talk about the AP a little bit? I was trying to educate on the live about the AP and how it doesn't matter. But again, on the Midwest Blitz, we educate you on facts and just some good information you need to know about the AP and what the difference is to the college football playoffs.
The AP poll doesn't matter a lot, but it's some kind of an indicator about how your season's going. And I was about to say about the Trojans, they've got 2 road losses to 2, in my opinion, very legitimate ranked teams in Illinois and Notre Dame. How do they have 2 losses and they're bumped out when Notre Dame started 0-2? And did they ever drop out of the polls? Did they ever drop out of the polls for like a week and then they were back in or something? Like, it's pretty biased and a lot of it's a pretty uneducated vote. Unlike the College Football Playoff Committee, which me and Drew were doing a little research on who's on the committee this year. There's one media member who's written multiple books about college football, and everybody else on the committee is either a Hall of Fame former player, a former coach, or a former athletic director. So, I mean, the College Football Playoff Committee, when they come out with their rankings, it's a lot more well-researched and a lot more reliable than what the AP gives you. But it's fun to see who's ranked in the AP for sure, especially when your team moves up like the Hoosiers did this weekend. But it doesn't mean that much. USC is still in the hunt for a lot of things. They've got 1 conference loss, and that road loss, if they were to win out, I'm not saying they will, but if they were to win out, that road loss at Notre Dame is not really going to hurt them very much.
Yeah, so you're telling me Shohei Ohtani's not going to be voting for the college football playoffs, right?
Not this year, Drew.
Or Peter Griffin from Family Guy. I mean, these people... Guys, when I tell you guys, when I was on live the other day, I just wanted to encourage you guys. Yes, the AP matters for respect and trash talking and all that right now. It's just for
fun, basically. It's really just for fun.
Once we get to Week 10, everyone, we are going to see the college football playoff drop in the order that they have, and it's going to be updated weekly. We're going to be going live on those Tuesdays. Once it happens, you'll see me. And depending on where Big Nick is, he'll also be joining us too on those lives. We'll be on TikTok live. We're still working on the YouTubes. We'll be like old people.
All the Twitters, all the YouTubes. We're on them.
Yep. Yeah, yup.
Yeah, yup.
So there was a game that happened on Friday, and what we also known as call it the Minnesota, where the Gophers are from. And something amazing happened for them. They had 9 sacks, at least 7+ sacks. I can say that as a statistical thing.
You just spoiled my intro, Coach Drew. Go ahead.
Nope. I can cover it back. We're going to pass this ball like Stockton. I wasn't trying to steal nobody's thunder, okay? So here's me passing the ball to Coach Nick.
Nebraska visited Minnesota. I just messed my own intro up. Nebraska visited Minnesota to play the Gophers on Friday night. Nebraska set a school record, but not in a good way. They allowed 9 sacks of their quarterback, Dylan Raiola, and Dylan Raiola, the offensive line, and the offensive coaching staff were absolutely brutalized by the Minnesota defense. My player of the game in this one is Anthony Smith, the stud edge rusher from Minnesota, had 2.5 sacks out of the 9. He's a guy you should be double teaming. I don't know if anyone sent him a memo on that. Maybe he was double teamed on one of those sacks. I'm not sure. But yeah, to the tune of 9 sacks, this Nebraska offense was basically humiliated, in my opinion. And I want to give a shout out to Raiola. Under all the pressure he was under, I don't know how many QB pressures they had in addition to the 9 sacks. Under all that pressure, he threw 0 interceptions, which is freaking amazing. Shout out to Dylan Raiola for having some composure under pressure there. Yeah, Anthony Smith, 2.5 sacks. Carter Mins also had 2.5 sacks for the Gophers. Maverick Baranowski, who made our all-names team, and will probably make our all-Midwest Blitz team as a linebacker for the Gophers, and Zaquan Bryan combined for 14 total tackles and an absolute shutdown of Nebraska's offense. Guess who we found Friday night, Coach Drew? He was on the back of a milk cart, and we found Darius Taylor. How many yards did Darius Taylor have? Like 130, 140? He had a big-ass game Friday night. I mean, the Gophers absolutely pounded Nebraska up front on both sides of the ball. 13 total yards for Nebraska to 339 for Minnesota, but I just think control of the line of scrimmage really told the tale in this game. And as we said in our preview, I knew that PJ Fleck was going to have them fired up because the Gophers hate Nebraska because Nebraska's the blue blood. And I know that if you're Minnesota, you got a chip on your shoulder, just like I do as an Indiana fan when they play certain teams. You feel like your team deserves more respect. And I know that that's how Fleck felt. And they defended home field against Nebraska. That's a tough one for the Huskers. Drew, what do you got to say?
Well, I mean, like we did, we were going to pass the ball back to me. I'll say Dylan Raiola, he had a lot of passes that, I mean, I think at one point he passed with his left hand. I mean,
he did it last week, too.
I mean, when you're getting sacked that many times, you got to be creative with both hands, I guess, depending on which way you roll out and different stuff. And he's throwing a lot of good passes. I just think, going back to earlier season predictions, we liked Minnesota a lot. And we thought that, they can roll their boats with this run game the whole season. The unfortunate thing is the 2 games that they lost, their run game was not efficient, and they did beat a top 25 team, so that was considered an upset. So now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, what would it have been if they had that run game all season? Like the what ifs. And I think that's a segment we're going to do at the end of the year, like the what ifs, when we recap all the teams like together in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But what if Minnesota had this? We're also going to talk about Penn State in that what if, but we're talking about Minnesota right now.
That's a great question.
That's all I got to say about that game.
We've been wondering about the Minnesota run game for a while now and asking these questions. And when I said that Darius Taylor was on a milk carton, it's not an insult to him. It's just the production hasn't there. He was battling the hamstring injury. But, hey, shout out to the Gophers. Row that boat, baby. That's a big-ass win. Big-ass win for the Gophers.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it is huge. I mean, the thing is, when we talk about this team, and I'm sorry, Nebraska fans, we understand. I've seen all your stuff. On the Midwest Blitz, we understand you're going through a lot. You guys don't want Matt Rule, and
we're not
the
kicking,
expectations.
Yeah, we're not kicking Nebraska right now. But yeah, I mean, I heard this brought up by a couple pundits that what's going on in the locker room with team chemistry right now as these Matt Rule to Penn State rumors are going around. I mean, it's probably not helpful, and I'm not sure that he's done the greatest job of denying that he could end up leaving, and that's just a shame for a team who's having a great year. And now
it is. That's one of the things too with Nebraska. Like, they're talking about the ceiling. So some of them. So obviously the highest ceiling you can have the whole season is we're gonna win the national championships. So teams that talk like that are right now, I would say, it's Indiana, Ohio State, Texas A&M,
Alabama,
Miami was last week. Like, those teams are talking about it right now in that perspective. Nebraska's like college football playoffs. We're not going to make that. And then the next thing was we were trying to be supportive and be like, hey, this is your path to the Big Ten championship. They're like, we don't want that either. And now it's like, it's almost like whatever positive you say, it's going to be turned into a negative. And I feel for that fan base and I hope for the best. We're going to continue to cover them, but we'll make sure we take care of you, Nebraska, in the offseason.
Yeah, we're
for
here
sure.
for you, Husker fans. This is not a kick Nebraska while they're down moment, but we had to give credit to the Gophers the way they played the other night.
Well, now we got to head over to where the jump around happens in the fourth quarter, where Mr. Fickle's seat is hotter than the Devil's throne. You like that one, Nick? Hotter than the Devil's throne. I mean, how hot can his seat be?
That's gonna blister
not
your ass, Drew. That's how hot it is. But
I
hey,
mean, I'm not gonna. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
thought I sent you and somebody. Wisconsin's athletic director came out in support of Luke Fickell after they lost to the Ohio State University over the weekend. Buckeyes remain perfect. Badgers dropped to 0-4 in conference play. They were shut out, I believe, at home. Definitely shut out the last 2 weeks. And I believe both of them in Madison. The Wisconsin offense shut out second week in a row. Athletic director pledges faith in Luke Fickell, vows to get the budget raised for NIL and these other things that you need to compete in modern college football. 9 passing yards for Wisconsin in this game. 9. Bright spot for Wisconsin. Cooper Catalan had 8 tackles on defense. Christian Allegro had 6 tackles and 2 tackles for loss, but I mean, you say Wisconsin defense, what's the defense supposed to do when they're stuck on the field the whole game, when your offense can't maintain drives and you're playing against one of the most talented offenses in America with the most talented wide receiver room in America and a fantastic point guard / quarterback to distribute the ball to them like Stockton. See what I did there, Drew, based off of your pass it like Stockton there? See what I did there, America? Julian Sand, 390 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. Carnell Tate, the most underrated player in America, 6 catches, 111 yards, 2 tuds. Jeremiah Smith, 9 catches for 97 yards. Yawn. You know, easy money for him. Now, I get a question here. Bo Jackson, the other Bo Jackson, as he will always be to me because I love Bo Jackson. The original Bo Jackson is one of my favorite, athletic heroes of all time. But the other Bo Jackson, 10 carries for 26 yards. The other back they had, I think, averaged close to 5 yards a carry. How's he get 10 for 26? Is he banged up? Is he not playing well? This running game, and I hate to be critical in a great, solid road victory. Every road victory in the Big Ten, whether it's versus the best team or the worst team, is a good victory. But I think this running game is still a work in progress, but they figured out a way to utilize the passing game to hit you with big plays or to just move the chains. This passing game is coming along. Julian Super Saiyan is an absolute stud freshman. Maybe only second behind CJ Carr, but CJ Carr, a little bit of a rough game. We're going to get into that later. Saiyan's fantastic. Caleb Downs, 6 tackles to lead the Buckeyes. Arvell Reese, 4 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. Arvell Reese is an absolute dog. That dude's going to be playing on Sundays for a while if he stays healthy. Caden Curry, an Indiana boy, had a sack and 3 tackles. He's like a 6th-year COVID senior at this point. He's really taken off for the Buckeyes this year. He's becoming a fan favorite down there in Columbus. So Luke Fickell hangs around, lives to fight another day, and the Ohio State perfect. Here's how you know it's a great team, Drew. You ready? Ohio State wins and dominates from buzzer to buzzer so well that people don't even really talk about them that much because nobody's hung around long enough besides Texas. Week 1, no one even hangs around long enough to make it interesting because these games are not, to a general fan who's not a Big Ten fan or a Buckeye fan, these games aren't interesting. Everybody else is just a sparring partner so far for the Ohio State Buckeyes. It might be that way till the Big Ten championship game. They might face somebody pretty tough in that Big Ten championship game, but we'll wait and see who that's going to be.
Well, I will say about this game, Pat McAfee was talking about it on College Game Day, and a lot of the other hosts were talking about this too. I had them down as 3 points to score. That was me being generous with Wisconsin. It is It is very common in sports jargon, football particularly, to say, my team's going to blow your team out and you ain't even going to score a touchdown. It's a respectable thing to say against your rival. People were saying that about Wisconsin wasn't going to score a touchdown, and they meant it. And, well, it happened. And, third string quarterback out of Southern Illinois last year goes against the Ohio State. I mean, I can only imagine how crazy that would be for a quarterback to step in that position. The offense didn't look well. I did want to add something to the running back situation or the running schemes that happened with Ohio State. Ohio State's running game rushed under less than 100 yards against Wisconsin. Now, some say Wisconsin has one of the best run defenses in the nation, and
That's
they're
true.
stout, and they're a good run defense, right? But holy Toledo, 393 through the air. I mean, they chucked the ball up, somebody caught it, and got like 60 yards. It is bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like we talked about when Wisconsin early in the season played at Alabama. Alabama couldn't run the ball against Wisconsin early, and then Alabama's just like, we don't have to run it. We're just going to throw it. And Ty Simpson ended up having a big game. Wisconsin football makes me sad, Drew. Can we move on to Michigan State at Indiana?
Yes, we can, where Heisman Mendoza is playing his ass off. Go ahead, Nick.
Fernando Mendoza, Heisman Mendoza, 24 out of 28, 4 touchdowns. The Hoosiers keep the old brass spittoon in Bloomington in a dominant performance. Michigan State actually came out with a pretty good game plan. They kind of did some things similar to what Iowa did against Indiana, where they ran some screens and some dink and dunk passes underneath to offset how aggressive Indiana's defense is. And I think they had plans to kind of bust Indiana over the top with some big plays, but after some halftime adjustments, the Hoosiers were triumphant 38-13. Fernando Heisman Mendoza firmly in the Heisman conversation right now. Omar Cooper for the Hoosiers, 8 catches for $115 and a tud. And Elijah Surratt, only 4 catches in this game for 70 yards, but 2 more touchdowns. I believe he's leading the nation in touchdown receptions with 9 at this point, is firmly in the Fred Biletnikoff Award conversation for best wide receiver in the country. The Michigan State defense held Indiana, kind of air quotes, held them to 132 rushing yards, but that's better than most teams have done against the Hoosiers. I think they really came out and tried to take the run away because Indiana does want to be a run-first offense, but when you do that, it's a pick your poison because when Mendoza has lanes to throw the ball, I mean, he's throwing darts out there, Drew. The secondary for Michigan State got dissected like a frog in freshman biology. I mean, Mendoza's going to carve you up. If you start loading the box to stop the run, it's just not going to work out for you. Hey, and Louis Moore for IU is a grown-ass man. He's another 6-year COVID senior, if you want to use that term again, but he led the team in tackles. Oh, D'Angelo Pons, who's always talked about because of his small stature as a cover corner, another air quotes there for you on audio only, had 9 tackles. 9 tackles for 5'9" D'Angelo Pons when they were throwing all those screens and dink and dunk passes. D'Angelo Pons is going to come up and hit you. He plays a lot bigger than his size. Aiden Fisher, 9 tackles to lead the Hoosiers along with Pons. And Reloja Hardy and Stephen Daly both had 2 sacks. This Hoosier defense is nothing to sneeze at, as my dog lets out a couple sneezes over there. Hoosiers roll.
Yeah, they did, and I want to see Aiden Childs do really good. I know we previewed Michigan State. That was like one of your teams that we covered early that you picked to do well.
I mean, his numbers on a surface level were pretty good, but Michigan State basically just agreed amongst themselves, we're not even really going to try to run the ball against this front 7 because they wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah. He did get a scamper, though. He did get a big scamper late in the game, though.
Was that like a 60-yard run?
Yeah, and it was like kind of like in garbage time. One of the things that I am tracking with Michigan State for all our Michigan State fans, insiders, I do not know what they're feeling about Aiden Childs entering the transfer portal at the end of the season, as he's a junior entering his senior year. I just hope that he stays with the team. But Michigan State also is trying to get freshman Milo Vajevic. I pronounced that pronunciation really bad, but he's out of Naperville, Illinois, a local kid to my area. And they're trying to get him some reps. So it's, we'll see how that progresses in the offseason. We'll definitely be tracking it, but we definitely want to see Michigan State stick together and try to make a run next year. I don't like players running off to other places. I want them to stay where they are and just, I guess, old school college football now.
Nick Marsh scored the only touchdown of the game for the Spartans, I believe. So shout out to Nick Marsh, another stud. We'd like to see him and Chiles stay together. I agree with that. That's a fun combination when you get them on the right day. But Michigan State's season is just not shaped up as well as Spartan fans would like to have seen it shape up. I think they're 0-4 in conference play.
Yeah. It's also another sad one. Well, let's go to Rutgers, where football all began, ladies and gentlemen.
The birthplace.
And the Ducks, the birthplace, where a Pac-12, former Pac-12 team plays against a Big East former team in what we're going to call a grand football matchup. There's another one coming up that me and Nick were talking about that's pretty funny. So let's go ahead and talk about Oregon and Rutgers. This game got out of hand quickly, didn't it, Nick?
Drew, to best of my recollection, I haven't consumed any drugs tonight, but I'm looking at my notes and it says that the Oregon offense, the Rutgers defense gave up 56 points in 3 quarters. Yeah. Can you confirm that for me, or have I been dosed?
Nope, that's correct. They decided not to score anything in the last quarter.
Jiminy Chris, 56 points in 3 quarters. It reminds me of the scene in Major League where the Indians lose and they're reading the box score and they lost like 2-0. And they're like, the Indians had 1 hit. And then the color commentator goes, how many? 1 hit? 1 goddamn hit. That's all they had. That's how I feel when I see Rutgers give up 56 in 3 quarters. You're like, are my eyes deceiving me? And man, this Rutgers defense is turning out to be almost historically bad by Big Ten standards. I mean, maybe the numbers don't support that statement on a literal basis, but boy, they can't defend a sack of footballs right now. Dante Moore, 15 out of 20 with 4 touchdowns for the Oregon Ducks. Quack, quack, quack. Noah Whittingham.
Quack, quack.
Noah Whittingham, 11 again. Am I on drugs? 11 carries for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. 11 for 125. That's like video game numbers.
I was about to say that.
Kenyon the Freak Sadiq, 4 catches, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. He benches about 350, Drew. Actually, I might be selling him a little short there. He's also really fast. He's pretty good at football, that Kenyon Sadiq. They might be giving him a paycheck on Sunday before you know it. Callie McManus at quarterback for Rutgers, who's been good this year, was 8 of 25. 8 of 25 with 2 interceptions. The team averaged 2.9 yards per carry rushing, and Ian Strong, who we gave a shout out to last week, who threw 5 games last week, he missed a game for injury, had 100 receiving yards in every game. Fell short of that mark this week, but you can't blame it on him. Ian Strong's a really good player. On defense, Bryce, now here's a bright spot for Rutgers, all right? Bryce Betcher, the all-conference linebacker for Oregon and Eugene, Oregon hometown hero, had 7 tackles, but he had 0 stolen bases and 0 home runs, Drew. So
yeah,
Rutgers did hold him there. He got drafted by the Astros last year, in case you guys didn't realize it. So 0 home runs, 0 stolen bases for Bryce Betcher. The Scarlet Knights can hang their hat on that one this week. Mixon and Williams, each for Oregon, had 5 tackles and a half a sack each. Ouch. Speaking of football that makes me sad, can we move on to the big house?
Yeah, we could. I just also want to mention just because we're talking about dual athletes, there's actually an athlete that I believe is a 3 or 4-star athlete who was drafted by the Blackhawks, and he's playing his senior season of football, and he basically agreed that when he got drafted to the Blackhawks that he's just playing his senior year of high school because he's never going to play football ever again. And I just feel like that's one of those things that's where I'm like, heard that one before. You know, Drake Bowen, one of the great region rats who we covered with Notre Dame. He went to Notre Dame to play base. He was a baseball player and also a football player. He left the baseball team, which is funny because he left early to play for him. But enough about Notre Dame. We're going to the big house, where the seats were definitely filled for this one, as this was a former championship game not too long ago, wasn't it, Nick?
2 years national championship game rematch because they played last year. I believe the Huskies won that one going away. Michigan defends the Big House 24-7 against the Washington Huskies on a big noon kickoff where Washington was playing at 9 a.m. Washington time. 9 a.m. Washington time. So we'll talk about that after we run through some numbers and stuff. But Michigan wins the turnover battle in this game, 0-3. You're usually going to get you a win if you win the turnover battle by 3. Ron Williams, 20 of 32 with 3 interceptions for Washington. He had broken the school record for total yards the week before, I believe, with about 550 total yards. Jonah Coleman did have a touchdown for the Huskies, but 16 carries for 50 yards. That run game has just not really come together in terms of actual production, unless it's Damon Williams running it. Denzel Boston, preseason All-American selection by some, had 4 catches for 70 yards. Washington had 40 net rushing yards in this game, Drew. That's like 1 hit in the box score. Derek Moore from Michigan had 2 sacks. Ernest Hausman had 7 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. And Jimmy Rolder, the linebacker who's really come on strong for the Wolverines, led the team with 8 tackles. Shout out to Washington's defense. Mikel Easteen had 8 tackles to lead the team. Now, Drew, I got a question for you here. Bryce Underwood was 21 of 27 for 230 and 2 touchdowns. 2 tuds, 230 yards. Is that good enough for you, Coach Drew? Do we want to blow any shade at Bryce Underwood for his 230-yard, 2-touchdown performance? Does that satisfy Coach Drew's needs for Bryce Underwood's performance index for the season? You've been a little hard on Bryce Underwood this year, Drew. I just wanted to touch base with you on that.
Yeah, I believe Bryce Underwood is a great quarterback, and I still think he is a great quarterback. I think those 2 tutties, one of them was on a broken down play across the middle. That was a bailout. But a touchdown's a touchdown, nonetheless. I mean, it comes where it goes.
Backhanded compliments. The backhanded compliments keep coming, Wolverine fans. You text Coach or email Coach Drew at themidwestblitz@gmail.com with any Bryce Underwood comments.
Hold on.
Or
Michigan
better yet,
is a beautiful place.
Whoa. You said Ann Arbor is a whore. You said that off the air, and I'm quoting you right now. Justice Haynes was out in this one. He didn't really say that, but you guys have heard that one before. Jordan Marshall stepped in for the injured Justice Haynes, another dog. Marshall stepped in to the tune of 25 carries for 133 yards and a touchdown for the Wolverines. Also, not Jordan Marshall, but Marshall, the wide receiver, and Andrew Marsh had 5 catches and 1 touchdown each, 180 rushing yards for the Wolverines. How do we feel about this time zone switch and this scheduling decision by the Big Ten Conference to have this game at noon Eastern, I believe? Is that fair to the Huskies, Coach Drew?
Well, here's the thing. They're not pro athletes. They're student athletes. I understand that in their travel schedule, they have to move around and they get excused from classes, but they need to be also in the class learning. There's a lot that goes into it. Okay, being a former student athlete, I understand. For baseball, we used to travel on Wednesdays or Thursdays, depending on where we're at, and then we'll go to a said location if it's Eastern or whatnot. And you're like 2 or 3 hours difference. That's you got to get there a little bit to try to get into it. I will say this, and we were talking about this pregame. There is a team that isn't complaining about traveling.
The Oregon Ducks.
The Oregon Ducks, there's another one with Tokyo Toe, ready bowl eligible.
Well,
Hawaii. Yep.
Hawaii, 3 time zones from the next closest school. So that's kind of a condition they agreed to up front. I'm just going to, I'm kind of beating around the bush. I think this is bullshit that you have teams from the West Coast that are asked to play noon games. This isn't 1952 college football where all the games are played at noon. They could have easily made this a 3:30 game, and they chose not to. I think it's a competitive advantage for Michigan in this instance. I'm not saying that it costs Washington the game, but their body clock is at 9 a.m. It would take you days to adjust to that, and I don't think it's right, but you know what? If you guys haven't figured this out yet here on the Midwest Blitz, college sports, well, all sports, but college sports has very soundly proven to be controlled by the television networks and the cable companies at this point. I don't think it's right. Traveling west to east 3 time zones to play a noon game is like waking up to play at 9 a.m. I mean,
Well,
I ref youth football at 9 a.m. and the kids are still asleep. I know that's a little different, but nobody plays well. Drew, you coach, and I umpire 8 a.m. travel baseball games in the summer, and the quality of play is always impacted when you're forced to wake up that early.
it just feels terrible. You don't get to hang out with your friends as long enough, especially when you're visiting. It's just not great. One of the things too about the time changes, and I'm glad you brought it up because there was a thought I had. You know, we're talking about, you said, oh, traditions, and they call big noon kickoff with Fox and everything, yada yada
I
yada.
love noon kickoffs, but there's a time and a place for that.
Well, I was gonna say we also call it the Big Ten, but there's 18 teams now. So why can't we have big noon kickoff at 3:00? Why it's just at this point it's just a name.
Okay, let's say your goal was to get the Washington Huskies on the Big Ten noon kickoff on Fox. You could do that when Washington plays a home game and do it in such a manner that neither team is disadvantaged and still have a chance to get those teams on a nationally televised game, which I know is good for recruiting and all that. There's just no way that playing at 9 a.m. is not, I mean, it's statistically proven. Somebody wrote a book about it a while back about that travel and how it affects outcomes of games. But
Using a Midwestern term, we call people on the construction site white hats. The people that don't get their helmets dirty, that just show up and go, yeah, go over there and do that. Yeah. I wonder if that 9 a.m. was approved by some white hats when they went in negotiations. They're like, you're cool with your teams playing at 9 a.m.? Yeah, they're young. They're college kids. They'll be fine.
They're young. Yeah.
Let me just fix my bow tie and go back to my office in my cool area and let me pull out my whiskey and drink and watch this game. I mean, that's how I feel about that situation. It was obviously probably approved not by the coach, probably by a white hat, somebody with money, and goes, yeah, they can play at 9 a.m. They're children. What are children doing nowadays? They can play at 9 a.m.
That's a great point you just brought up about being on a construction site in my younger days. When the guy's got a hard hat on that doesn't have a grain of dirt on it and he's wearing a tie, you know he ain't doing no damn work.
The white hats.
The white hats.
They always come up to you and they go, you're not doing that right. Here, let me show you. And then they like do it the wrong way because they haven't done it in 15 years. And you're like, hey, buddy, let me show you how I'm going to do it. Now, it might not be OSHA approved. Now, we're not going to talk about OSHA violations.
I was going to say, that's OSHA. The OSHA guy shows up with a tie and a hard hat on and starts showing you how to do it. I think the guy from OSHA one time asked me to stabilize my ladder by stacking a series of phone books under the one side when it was uneven. I don't know. It was something really stupid. Yeah.
That doesn't sound like that. That sounds like what OSHA should have told you. That's an OSHA violation. They should have told you to get the right letter, as I'm OSHA 40 hours approved.
I'm not literally, like, we had the ladder set up. We're getting a little off track here, but we had the ladder set up in such a way that it was pretty secure. And then the guy was like, this is actually not OSHA approved. And then he told us the way to actually set up the ladder for uneven ground. And it made no freaking sense. And I was like, there's no way I'm getting on this ladder the way you just told me to do that. That's totally unsafe. And he goes, I know, I just had to tell you that. And I'm like, what the fuck are you here for then? Go home. Sorry.
Yep.
Here we go. Let's go to Northwestern, where the Wildcats have been playing in a wonderful little high school stadium, and they invited the Purdue Boilermakers to bring their big old drum for a weekend visit. Back to Chicago. So we won't go too far into this one, but Northwestern 19, Purdue 0. This is a big win for Coach. What? This is a big win for Coach Braun and the Wildcats, Drew. What's so funny about that? You probably just thought of something you were going to say about Bryce Underwood again, right, Drew?
No, you just kind of you pulled around the corner. You're like, we're just going to breeze right past this. Northwestern won 19-0. The way you said it so calm and like firm, it just made me laugh because it's just like, yeah, Wisconsin lost 36-0.
Northwestern
brushed right through this game.
Northwestern football's not a joke, Coach Drew. They're 3-1 in conference play right now. And you know what? Northwestern Wildcats do not play in the state of Kansas, another place you're not very fond of. This is not a Kansas team. This is a team from the Chicagoland area. That's where your people are from, Coach Drew. Northwestern wins 19-0. Coach Braun has done a great job with the Wildcats this year. They are 3-1 in Big Ten play. I was listening to the Purdue radio play-by-play on my way to South Bend to catch the Notre Dame game, and as Purdue radio announcers are prone to do, they were quite dejected at halftime. I think it was 13-0, but they were ready to go home at halftime. It was pretty sad unless you're an Indiana fan. The Boilers dropped to 0-4 in Big Ten play.
Yep. Moving around the bend, we're going down to Iowa, where the Field of Dreams was. We're going over there. We're going to see what Master Splinter had in plan for the limping, wounded Nittany Lions.
The Nittany Lions dropped this one on the road, 24-25. Nittany Lions, who guessed this preseason, Coach? Nittany Lions and the Purdue Boilermakers have the same record in Big Ten play right now. The Nittany Lions are 0-4. Iowa is 3-1 in Big Ten play. If this is not an Iowa stat, we love people from Iowa. Coach Drew loves people from Iowa, partly because they're not from Kansas. And if they were, then that would be a different story. But this is
Iowa used to be on the bottom of the list, but then I found out about Kansas, then I had to switch states.
We love you people from Iowa. Gronowski, the quarterback for Iowa, had 68 passing yards in a win. And I'm not even surprised. And that's the most Iowa stat you could possibly have. But Gronowski, who is also a grown-ass man, had 130 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Kamari Moulton also had 17 carries for 99 yards for the Hawks. Penn State, Katron Allen, 28 carries for 145 yards. He's really picked up the slack. Nick Singleton had 6 for 15. He has to have some kind of nagging injury, Nick Singleton. I'm kind of worried about his NFL draft stock right now. Well, a lot of guys, but I mean, Katron Allen's still putting up numbers and pretending to kick down doors in the end zone while Nick Singleton is over there, I don't know, getting ready to apply for unemployment or something.
Yeah,
he is getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State reminds me of a team that you'd see, like, probably in baseball as the World Series is going on right now. I mean, the expectation of the money that is out should equal to equivalent to big wins and not losing. If you look at the bottom teams of the Big Ten, I'm going to read them in order that they are presented in ESPN, so it's not me being biased, it's just what they show. You have Michigan State, Penn State, Rutgers, Purdue, and Wisconsin. And I guarantee you, out of all those teams, Penn State also lost to, like, Northwestern, which isn't down there, but that's where we expected them to be, and UCLA, and UCLA beat them too as well. The thing is, you're looking down there, the difference in output to their roster construction is probably insane, because not too long ago, folks, ladies and gents, they thought they were going to buy Kurt Cinetti from Indiana for $56 million, like Dr. Evil, as Nick just had a whoopsies on camera. We got to clip that later. But again,
I heard Marcus Freeman's going to Florida, Coach Drew, after they fired Billy Napier. What do we think about that? Get out of here with this shit.
I saw there's a lot of bad articles out there.
Bad.
We try to be authentic as we can. And that's why I think a lot of you guys like us, because we're from the Midwest Blitz.
We keep it real on the Midwest Blitz.
We keep it real.
Marcus Freeman ain't going to Penn State. He ain't going to Florida. He ain't going to Florida State. He's not going anywhere.
Somebody said he was interested. Somebody's like, he's interested in Penn State. I'm like, why would he leave Notre Dame?
I mean,
and somebody made a bad
Yeah. It's hard to turn down a free lunch, but he ain't going anywhere. I mean, it's so thirsty and so desperate for them to be floating this shit that is clearly not going to happen. I know that some of the Penn State people thought they were going to argue with us about, damn it, I don't have the dunce cap. But, you know, we had to get a dunce cap for all the people that thought Cignetti was going to leave Indiana to go to Penn State and all this. I mean, if you ever heard this is not a theory, it's real. Sometimes when a big time business wants something to happen, and we're talking about people with major pull and like news networks, they'll leak information, air quotes, and it's all to get a rumor started, to put feelers out there to see if they can get something done. Don't trust people in the media. Even the sports media, just trust the Midwest Blitz. We're not here to bullshit you, but some of these people with these rumors, it's so funny. So
We can say
funny.
a lot of odd edity things, like Purdue's going to go to the national championship in football. Now I'm just waiting for every time Nick to drink water. We can say,
Yeah.
we can say Rutgers
Faster.
is going to the national championship. We can say, let me name another team down there. Michigan State's going to pay $100 million for Julian Sayon to transfer there for the rest of his years from Ohio
No,
State.
but they might guarantee a coach $100 million contract after he has one winning season. Wait, that already happened.
Well, yeah, that's okay. Those are facts, but again, going down the logical line of where these people are just, honestly, Nick, I feel like these people will just, like you said, put out feelers, put out stupid stuff. AI generates some goofy stuff too, as well, as I've been sharing it in the group chat. So we got to go over to another one that's just kind of like this team too. Also big. Another big win. This actually is going to lead into. Did you see what Chris Cinetti said? And he got actually some flack from this about UCLA in his press conference. I feel like you might not have guided around to it today.
I didn't. What'd he say?
He said that when asked about the UCLA team, he goes, "This team right now is 3-0." And he said that with confidence. He goes, "The coaching staff has changed. He's preparing for what we call it's a trap." From Star Wars, like cue the guy. It's a trap.
You know
like,
what? I thought the exact same thing earlier, and I did not see Cignetti's post-game comments about that. But how else would you scout this team? It's clearly the performance-wise and the strategy-wise, it's not the same team that blew ass at the beginning of the season that we were laughing at and making fun of every week. It's not the same team. It's like, if you ever saw a fat chick that lost a bunch of weight and got hot, or you ever saw a skinny guy who worked out and got a bunch of muscles, that ain't the same guy anymore. And it's the same with that UCLA team, man. That UCLA team is, I think Indiana is going to take care of business next week. But if you're a coach and you're taking them lightly right now, then, you're waiting to get dunked on because they're playing with house money, as we've said the last couple weeks. They hosted Maryland, and what was a great game. That was ultimately Nico took UCLA on a drive at the end, got him in field goal range, but it was one of those tough chip shots that was pretty close. And Mateen Bagani, UCLA kicker, made a really nice chip shot from the right hash as a right-footed kicker. That is a really difficult kick. So the Bruins keep it rolling. But yeah, Cignetti's comment is correct. That team is 3-0. Well, what else would you say? Well, yeah, we've only won 3 in a row, but they sucked earlier in the year. No, that team right now is very good.
Well, that was the thing too. We were talking about Nico leaving because they had a 30-day transfer window. He transferred out of Tennessee. He went to UCLA for the grass is always greener on the other side. And he found that it wasn't. And it was hard to win with UCLA. Out of nowhere, they just turned on the Jets. Beat James Franklin was still at Penn State. I want people to remember this. When UCLA beat them, they still had James Franklin there. That's one of the things. Like people will say, "Oh, well, they beat Penn State without James Franklin." No, he was there when they played, and I believe Drew Aller played in that game too. So that's a good quality win for them moving forward.
Absolutely.
I'm really interested to see what happens in this offseason. UCLA and USC, both in the Hollywood area, both a lot of people, like famous people, have gone to these universities. It's interesting to see about what trust fund they can get pulled in for these players to acquire more things. That's what it's going to be. There's been money dumped in Stanford, as we tracked earlier. It might not be enough to get the program where they need to be, but maybe they'll get some players that can be grounded to create some success in some games that they'll need to win. It's all about getting better and improving. UCLA, again, I like the approach. Think about them as a team that's 3-0. Find out what they're doing now. You can't even watch the film from when they started winning and up because it's a different offensive scheme. And I think that's what people do. They're looking at all the games. They're not looking at the recent films. They've made adjustments, right? If you look back at what Notre Dame was doing on defense or any team, because this is one that we covered heavy early in the season when they played Miami, that
Right.
same Notre Dame defense is not the same Notre Dame defense as today.
That's not.
And you'll lose every time preparing for something that isn't there anymore as an illusion.
Well, it's just like when a team gets a new head coach at the start of a season. If I'm playing Indiana and Curt Cignetti's the new head coach and I'm whoever, I'm Illinois, I'm Ohio State, and we're playing Indiana, I'm not watching Indiana game film from when Tom Allen was the coach. None of that shit matters. It's what the new coaching staff is running and the
Yep.
way the players are executing under that guy. I mean, conversely, I think if I played Penn State tomorrow, I might still watch some film from when they were playing better at the beginning of the season. But yeah, in the case of UCLA, you're scouting a brand new football team. That's the exact winning mindset you have to have when you play the Bruins right now.
Yep, exactly. Well, we went live at this place. Some call it the Cathedral of Football, as Nick would like to reference it all the time. We were live there, and before we get into the Notre Dame segment, we just want to take a moment of silence as we remember all the good tailgates we had at good old Dickie's house. Yep. So, if you guys don't know, Dickie has to move, and we're not going to get into details about that because I don't like sharing people's stuff, but basically, all you need to know is that we tailgated there multiple times. We were there for the Ohio State game across the street at Marvin's house. We're walking distance and all that. Nick wants to share something.
So our friend that we met a few years ago, Dickie, he founded what they call the Blue North Breakfast Club tailgate in the 90s. His family's from South Bend, and they used to set up this big tailgate in the parking lot by the stadium. And then as it evolved, his house is like a mile from the stadium. So he sets up this, we'll post videos of it on social media, but he has this huge potluck party with, I mean, it's open bar, all you can eat, all you can drink, TVs everywhere, family, people with their grandkids there. Coach Drew and some old lady started doing card tricks while we were there the other day. It was pretty awesome. I mean, it's
That does
great.
sound like me.
You got Notre Dame fans there, you got Indiana fans there, Ohio State fans. I mean, it's like an old school Midwest football party. And our friend, he sold his house by the stadium.
We played euchre.
We played euchre. The university bought his house, and our friend Dickie and his brother Marvin across the street got a big fat payday. So we're very happy for them about that. But our party spot kind of just evaporated. So we wanted to say goodbye and give a shout out to Dickie and all the fun times that we've had on Bulla. Is it Bulla Avenue?
I think so.
Bulla Avenue that leads right up to campus at Notre Dame. What a beautiful time we've had there. So
It definitely makes us feel like celebrities when we're on campus for sure.
it's a lot of fun. Has been a lot of fun. So the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame hosted the USC Trojans and beat them 34-24, minus 9.5, Drew. I said the line was too big. But Vegas knows. Notre Dame covers that 9.5. So the Irish played the physical style that they needed to play to win this game against a team that had a lot of finesse and a lot of athletes, but wasn't up to snuff up front, as I predicted going into the game. We told you that USC wasn't as stout up front as a lot of the national pundits were telling you. We quoted the PFF statistics, how they couldn't stop Illinois from running the ball. So what happens? Notre Dame comes out, runs the ball for 300-plus yards at a 7-yard per carry clip. In football terms, that's belt to ass. You got your ass beat up front, USC. I want to say this about Notre Dame offense and scoring in this game. That kickoff return by Jadarian Price that we saw live from the north end zone, he breaks a tackle, cuts out to the right sideline, breaks another tackle, and then cuts back to the middle. And that's what a running back looks like as a kick returner, as opposed to a wide receiver that just looks for that seam right up the middle and they wiggle through and take off like an old Rocket Ishmael clip or Tim Brown. But man, that kickoff return was amazing. USC's defense couldn't stop the run. Their secondary was very good. They held C.J. Carr to probably, off the top of my head, his worst performance of the year, in my opinion. The Notre Dame passing game, which had been really good, they had the number 3 PFF grade for wide receivers in the country, was really held down in this game by USC. But I think part of that has to do with Notre Dame being really committed to running the football in this game and maybe changing some concepts that they had been using. Mayava for USC, 300 yards. Lane had 6 catches for $111, and Makai Lemon, 4 catches for 76 yards. Is that right, Coach Drew? I mean, they had 68 total rushing yards for 2.3 yards per carry. So if you see one team has 2.3 yards per carry and the other team has 7 yards per carry, if you see those numbers alone, you can usually bet money that there was an ass beating that went on at the line of scrimmage. Notre Dame's defense dominated the line of scrimmage, slowing the run down, as we just said. 2 interceptions were huge by Christian Gray and Luke Talich, and 2 sacks, 1 apiece for KVA and Boubacar Traore. So we had some questions, and we have been questioning all year the Notre Dame defensive concept and the execution on that side of the ball. We've been pretty hard on Chris Ash. There was definitely an adjustment that happened where they did some things to try and confuse USC, but they were not things that were confusing for Notre Dame to execute defensively. And while they did give up 300 passing yards, that USC passing game is legit. Mayava is a stud. He did throw 2 interceptions in 42 pass attempts, Coach Drew, something like that. I mean, you drop back enough times and you're down at the end of the game. I think that, turnovers are going to happen. We talked about that in one of the games we covered earlier. So our questions about Notre Dame's defense, I feel like have been kind of answered in a way. So scheme has been cleaned up, but you still gave up 300 yards against maybe the most explosive passing game in the country. So this defense, opposed to, I hate to compare a team from 2 years ago, but when Caleb Williams came in off his Heisman season, that Notre Dame defense humiliated Caleb Williams. And you had a better pass rush, and I think that the coverage was also a little better. Better pass rush equals better coverage. It's yin and yang. They work together. It's 2 sides of the same coin. You had 2 sacks and 42 dropbacks. Now, there were pressures. I don't mean to imply that Notre Dame's defense was bad, but I think I kind of see where this Notre Dame team is. You played an elite passing game. You gave up 300 yards, but you had a game plan that allowed you to win the game. So if you're good enough to win this game, I think you're good enough to win a lot of games. And as they continue to progress, if they're able to get into the college football playoff, if they run the table with 2 losses, they're going to be a dangerous team in the playoff. But I don't think that this Notre Dame defense, with current personnel and current coordinator, is not going to be like the defense that you had last year in the playoff. Coach Drew?
Well, one of the things that I was trying to pick your brain about, just understanding the defensive scheme, and I hope I got some concepts right as I was trying to break that down live with you, with also trying to enjoy the game. It looked like Notre Dame was challenging them in man coverage a lot. And what ended up happening is when you play man coverage, sometimes, when they call the slants, right, you don't get a good break, and you got to tug or you got to hold, and the refs saw those and called them, and then what ended up happening was, it's like, they called a slant, we were in man, boom, didn't break down well, flag, okay. Immediately, the next play, they're like, we're going zone. And we know when they switch to that zone concept, it's really soft and they give up a lot of play. And they don't have enough time to react in the zone. I think that's another thing. The reaction isn't good in the zone because they're not getting a pressure. We talk about pressure, right? We were talking about this earlier. They're getting there, but they're not finishing the job. There's a couple of times where the D lineman got to the quarterback and he just kind of stepped away, threw it downfield, and if they weren't a man, it was wide open. If it wasn't, they had some big plays. I mean, every time they set up to run the ball, I'm like, oh, that's only 2 yards. The defense is stout. Al Washington, the defensive line coordinator, who me and our ISD insider met, he is a dog. He's a really good defensive line coach, and he's done a really good job. And I was reading pregame. We were in the bookstore down in Notre Dame, and it talked about Al Washington giving all these positive stats in the interior area where he works in. We'll call it his office. So where his specialty is, they're giving all the stats. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, yeah, the numbers are going to be high because they just throw the ball all the time. They don't have to run against them. But I will say USC did try to run it and it did not work. But one of the things that is weird, and Nick might be able to talk about this a little better than I can because he played at a higher level than I did, football-wise, but it just seems like, okay, they can stop the run, but they can't get to the quarterback. Why is that? What could be? Is it the stunts they're calling up front? Is it what the personnel they got?
Well, the hardest thing to recruit in football is elite defensive linemen, because there's only so many guys that are big and strong enough and also athletic enough to rush a passer. You could blow somebody up, meaning in the weight room, and coach them in such a way that they can be really good against the run. But there's only a few athletes that have the build and the gift to be on the D-line and be athletic enough to be an effective pass rusher and also be strong enough to not get knocked on their ass in the running game. And unfortunately right now for Notre Dame, they don't really – Boubacar Traore is the closest thing they got to it, and he's a good pass rusher, so I'm not throwing shade at Traore. But most teams would be lucky to have one guy like Traore. Other than that, you're going to have to generate pressures with blitzes and stunts, which is something that you just brought up. And I think that as the season goes along, I'm going to make a video tomorrow to explain the concept I'm going to explain right now, and we'll post it as a short on YouTube, and we'll post it on our TikTok. But one of the reasons that Notre Dame was able to generate more pressure, although they only had the 2 sacks, but you don't have to have a sack to generate pressure, as we've been beating that dead horse. Notre Dame is starting in either a single high safety or a 2 safety look. They're not lining up and playing the same type of cover 3 zone that they were mixing in early in the year. They're not running the same type of cover 4 concepts that they were running at the beginning of the year. They're showing you changed. They're running 2 different safety looks, a 2 safety or a single high safety, but they're mixing it and disguising it in a way, as I said earlier, that is not confusing for the defense, but does force the offense and the quarterback and the receivers to make a read right before the ball is snapped. And that safety movement that Notre Dame's doing, shifting safeties from 1 to 2, moving a guy up, dropping another guy back, or vice versa, that forces the offense to make a last-second adjustment, and that's all you really need. You want to confuse your opponent, right? Don't confuse yourself, and I feel like Notre Dame's getting there, and I also feel like they did draw up some blitzes out of that were effective at bringing pressure. I think that's where the sack from KVA came from, was they were shifting safeties, and then KVA came on a blitz instead of dropping in a plug to cover the hook curl zone over the middle of the field. Again, this is if you're listening only and we don't have diagrams for you, it might be kind of hard to understand. I think that on the track that they're on with the adjustments they've made, they're going to have an ability to draw up more pressures as far as blitzes and stunts that are going to be effective as the season moves along. Whereas like at the beginning of the year, they ran, okay, this is the difference between video game football and real football. If me and Drew are playing college football 26 and I'm running man-to-man coverage and he's beating me, I can just decide to mix in all these different zones and disguise coverages, and a computer can execute all these things with equal efficiency. Real football players can't run 4, 5, 6 different types of coverages and variations of all these zone coverages and stuff. And that was closer to what, in my opinion, at the beginning of the year, to make an easy comparison for you guys, Chris Ash was calling all these different coverages almost like he was playing college football 26 or playing Madden, where you can get away with that. In real life, though, when you run zones, they work because guys are very finely tuned at the area of the field they have to cover, and at passing a guy off from my zone to your zone and vice versa. And all these, there's a lot of communication that has to happen pre-snap and even during snap sometimes to do that. And Notre Dame has ditched a lot of the shit that was confusing players and making them think. We don't want athletes to think, Drew. We want athletes to react, especially on the defensive side of the football. That's why defense should be more simple than offense, because as a defender, I just want to think run, hit, tackle, play the football in the air if I'm in pass coverage. Run, hit, tackle. That's all you really want them to be thinking about. Anything more than that from the offense gains the advantage. So I'm really happy with the adjustments that I see that Ash has made, and I think that there's room for growth to generate more quarterback pressure by the time the college football playoff gets here based on what he's doing, assuming that they make it. I think if they win out and have the 2 losses that they had, they're going to be in, but we're obviously going to track that as the season goes along. Did that kind of answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, and that did. And I was thinking about what you're saying, because we did see a lot of the single high, because I was ID, and I was like, there's single high here. And I saw they were pressing at the line, and we knew they were going man, and it wasn't zone because of where they were playing position up in the line. And one of the things I do want to mention too is from a statistician standpoint, I'm sure they're trying to figure out as much as I am. I'm just a guy looking inside. This isn't my job. I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to do this. But I wonder what the limitation of how many seconds they need optimal so they can put pressure to then really make their man efficient. You know, if it's like 1.5 or 2 seconds on the quarterback exactly, because I know there's like that borderline. That's one of the things they talk about NFL quarterbacks and college quarterbacks. We look at these college quarterbacks and they have like 5 seconds to throw, and then they get to the NFL and they have 2, and we're like,
Right.
well, that's not the same quarterback. Well, it's like, yeah, because you got to read fast. It's not, you don't go 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4, and then chuck. So I wonder what the sweet spot is for it to be an optimal defense for Notre Dame. And even that would help the zone too, I would assume. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. So I really liked the offensive game plan they came out with. I thought they knew how they're like, we got to run the ball. We got to take care of the ball. CJ Carr did everything. There was a play where CJ Carr just needs to understand that when it was 3rd and 2 or whatever at the goal, or it was 3rd and 2 go at the goal line, he just needs to throw it away. He doesn't need to force that. We've gone back and forth, mostly me going back and forth. You made your decision about what you saw, right? But I thought he was trying to force something where the refs would call it. Nick told me that that's not the right call, and I do agree with him. And what I want to say is, okay, I'm trying to defend him in that situation because I'm biased, and Nick is a truist. He's true and pure. So it's good to have those conversations. The simple answer is just throw the ball away.
Right.
The answer is just throw the ball away, let the 4th and 3. If you're going to call another play on 4th and 3, or just get a field goal and move on. But he throws it away. That was a moment where it could have been a turning point for USC, and that could have been the end of the college football playoffs, which would have been terrible. I mean, CJ Carr was like a little snake back there. He was slithering back there. He did I think he got away from 3 defenders. It was really beautiful. And then he just throws it wide to the defender, and you're like, are we watching Pop Warner or are we watching Notre Dame football?
Let's think about 2 situations with 2 different freshman quarterbacks this year now. Carr is a redshirt freshman, and Underwood is a true freshman at Michigan. But look how much more shielded and protected Underwood has been in the schemes and game plans that they've come up with. They try to keep as little off of Underwood's plate as far as responsibilities as they can to allow him to maintain confidence, go out there, get game experience without, having the weight of the world on his shoulders. For CJ Carr, it's been pretty much the opposite, and he's done really well. But the reason I bring it up is Carr has done well with a lot of pressure, but Carr has made some dangerous decisions where he holds onto the ball for a while and has had success in those situations. So as a quarterback, when you do something that's not fundamentally sound and then it works out, it makes you bold enough to try something again. And I think it's a lot of things in sports and a lot of things in life, honestly. But for Carr, you've got to get bit by the snake before you remember not to step on the snake. And so he did make a bad decision on that throw. But I mean, I think the growth that he's getting this year is going to pay dividends for the Irish, not just at the end of this year, but moving forward, because all these experiences are game film where he can self-correct and he can sit down with the coordinator and the quarterback coach and go, look, see here, when this happened, you should have thrown it away, but you threw it here when you should have thrown it there, and da-da-da-da-da, and that's stuff you do in film room. So it's ultimately going to be good for growth, especially since it didn't cost him the game. But see, that's the thing that Underwood is missing out on by being a little more protected, is that he doesn't have the film to self-correct on mistakes. Obviously, we don't want to make too many mistakes, but making the mistakes and seeing them on film as a quarterback is going to help you in big games and big situations moving forward in your career.
I will say that this is the next quarterback project for the offensive coordinator, as he did create Jaden Daniels into a Heisman finalist. I can't remember if he won the Heisman, but
he did.
Did he? So he did. So yeah, and I didn't write that in my notes because we're just talking about Notre Dame football here.
Sure.
So, I mean, he does know how to make a Heisman quarterback, and CJ Carr doesn't run like Jaden Daniels. He also may wear number 13, and he's not Riley Leonard.
God.
He did not. He did steal our
He can throw
party.
the ball. There's one thing. If you're seeing a number 13 and you're wondering whether it's Riley Leonard or CJ Carr, This one throws the ball well, so it's not Riley Leonard. If you guys were confused about
Yeah.
that, yeah.
I mean,
Let the Notre Dame hate come in the comment section after that. Drew posted the not very heterosexual video of the comparison of the two number things. I can say that, right? I can say that it wasn't heterosexual. That's not offensive, is it, Drew?
no, it's just science. It's science.
Okay. And it was comparing Riley Leonard and CJ Carr. It might have been after the Miami game, after CJ Carr's first start. And I was like, oh God, the announcer kept saying, is that Riley Leonard? And then they were playing like this love song about the love affair that a lot of us had with Riley Leonard during the college football playoffs. And I'm like, no, it's not Riley Leonard. This guy can throw the ball from the pocket. It's like not a good comparison, but they're both number 13. So sorry, Riley Leonard just got moved to the practice squad. The backup quarterback got hurt for the Colts, and then people thought Riley was going to be the backup, and then they just signed somebody else. So he's still
His time's
developing.
coming.
Yep, that's what Tyler said. That's what our Notre Dame insider said.
One of the things I do want to mention, it was kind of crazy how USC came into this game and they said, we're going to throw the hell out of the ball and we're going to beat this team because they can't cover us. They're not going to cover us. And Notre Dame's like, this team sucks at covering or defending the run. We're going to run the ball. It literally was one offensive idea against another offensive idea.
It really was.
We're looking up at the scoreboard from the north entrance to the south entrance, and we're looking up and we go, wow, one team has a lot of rushing and not passing. Another team has a lot of passing and not rushing. I mean, the offensive philosophies were like balling right there. It was like they knew exactly what each defense was, and they're like, we're going to hit it. We're going to hit it. Mano on mano. They're going to make errors. Now, I'm not a fan of doing a trick play when it's raining and letting your best wide receiver just run around with the ball to then fumble the ball.
No.
And I don't know who called that. I want to believe the head coach did, but if the OC did, somebody he immediately he bid it in the conference. He knew exactly. Said so on that play. He goes that was a dumb play. He didn't even let him finish. He just knew exactly where he was going with it. He's like, that was a dumb play, and it was, and ultimately, you know, as you were talking about the spread, if you were listening on College Game Day too, anytime that the head coach for USC travels more than 1,000 yards. He never covers the spread. The opposing team always covers, which is just an interesting stat.
Can I try to work my way back into the good graces of Irish fans after the little side road I just went on? You just watched an all-time epic moment in the history of the Notre Dame USC rivalry with regard to Jeremiah Love's performance, who absolutely dunked on USC over and over again to the tune of 220-some yards. You just could not be more happy to see your best player who, I mean, I think right now with Midwest bias, I got Jeremiah Love, I got Fernando Mendoza, and I got Ty Simpson as probably my top 3 Heisman guys right now. I'm probably leaving somebody out, but Love absolutely ran roughshod, not to mention Bryce, but we had not given Jeremiah Love his due love on this one. And if you weren't in the stadium or didn't see it on TV, when the game was over, the stadium DJ at Notre Dame started playing California Love to mock the USC players as they were walking off the field. And it is, I mean, to be there live, it was one of the most hilarious trollings you could possibly imagine. Then you had excuse me, Coach Drew. Excuse me, everybody. Then you had the little scuffle on the sideline where one of Notre Dame's freshmen ran over there to steal one of their Trojan hand towels. Like, as they were playing California Love, all this stuff went down. But yeah, Jeremiah Love, if he wasn't already an all-time Indy legend, certainly lives in the hearts of Irish fans forever after 220 yards against the Trojans. And the last time we'll see them at Notre Dame Stadium in how long? Ever? Possibly. Foreseeable future. I mean, these rivalries, it's sad now. It's a bad thing about modern college sports. I mean, Indiana hasn't played Kentucky in basketball except for the NCAA tournament, which was 2016. But I mean, that was a rivalry when I was a kid. You're like, oh yeah, Indiana will always play Kentucky in basketball. Hey, Notre Dame's always going to play USC in football. So to see that go away is very sad, especially with the Irish being 7-1 in the last 8 meetings. Really hate to see the end of that, Coach Drew. You know, Coach Drew, I think we deserve some NIL money. You know why?
Why?
Notre Dame's undefeated against USC at home when you and I are there.
Yep.
Just, a little scratch, maybe a free ticket next time.
Just a little bit. The other thing, too, with this whole Notre Dame, and we did talk about this briefly, but in the offseason, we're also going to be with you guys as we're going to do a history section of sports, and we have to talk about this. Newt Rockne has a play literally called Newt Rockne. I believe that's what they called it.
Marcus has a play called Newt Rockne.
Yeah, Marcus.
Yeah.
Well, I just know it's called Newt Rockne. But
you said Newt Rockne has a play called Newt Rockne. That's why I said, you mean Marcus has a play called Newt Rockne.
I got you. Yeah. That was a little like,
sorry
moment. But that's more me, not you.
No, that's all right.
So this Newt Rockne got on a train one day and was like, I'm going to go kick USC's ass. So he goes on this train, he goes down there and kicks their ass. And he does so well that USC, similar to what Penn State tried to do, is they pull out their fat wallet and go, hey, you want to sign here? And he makes this decision and he goes, well, I can go to USC and reestablish it, or I can die a legend here. Newt Rockne used to go out there and play quarterback. Go ahead.
Can I backtrack just a little? If you guys are not familiar with it, the whole idea of cross-nation travel for intercollegiate athletics was kind of just Newt Rockne's brainchild. He was a master promoter and a master coach, and so he had this great idea to take Notre Dame on a train to go to California to play USC, and people thought it was kind of crazy. And Newt Rockne, about 100 years ago, went out there and took the Irish out there on a train and beat USC, and it was a national event. And it changed it changed sports, college sports in general, but it was one of the things that, if you fast forward, it's led to the promotion and the growth and popularity of college football, that and, Red Grange at Illinois. But in the off season, we're going to do a series of history episodes where we're going to talk about things that changed college football and things that happened in the Midwest with Notre Dame and Big Ten teams that are historical that maybe you don't know about or maybe you forgot. Yeah. But one of them is Newt Rockne taking the Irish on a train to Southern California back at a time where nobody did that. You just played teams that were regional to your area. And Newt Rockne, the legendary Notre Dame coached the Four Horsemen. He's the one that came up with that idea, which now, I don't know, maybe some of the youngs listen to this and they go, oh, they rode a train? They should have rode a dinosaur because it was so long ago. But I mean,
yeah,
it really is a cool story and a piece of college football history that every football fan should be aware of.
Well, it was so cool that Big Ten didn't even want them to play in the conference, which a lot of people don't know.
That's another one we're going to do. We're going to do the history. Sorry, Drew, I hate to keep cutting you off. I'm really excited about these history things we're going to do. We're going to do the history of Newt Rockne and his rivalry with the Michigan coach, Fielding Yost at the time, who was another one of the originators of marketing and strategy in college football and their rivalry. So Notre Dame tried to join the Western Athletic Conference, which was the Big Ten, and Fielding Yost at Michigan, who was basically just kind of a jerk and didn't want any more competition. He would deny teams that wanted to join the conference on the basis that they were cheaters or things to that effect. It's really a hilarious story. It kind of culminates with one of the two coaches writing a novel where they have a fictionalized version of the other coach to defame them. This was social media trash talk of, 100 years ago was like, well, I wrote a book and the main character is not Coach Drew. Wink. And then you're like, yeah, this coach is a major asshole and you write this whole book about him. But yeah, that's another thing we're going to do is the origin of the Michigan Notre Dame rivalry. And Fielding Yost and Rockne never actually faced each other on the field, but they had this media rivalry that went on for years, and then eventually Notre Dame and Michigan did start playing, and so that was where the rivalry was born. All right, Coach, you all shut up for a minute. Is this what we call a Midwest goodbye?
This is part of the Midwest goodbye. Then Michigan had to remove the YMCA's recreational team to play Notre Dame if that would have happened, and we can't remove that game. All right, we can't move that from their schedule. That's another thing we have to talk about too is how some of these, I saw for college basketball, I don't know how true it is, but college basketball also got kind of goofy with who they count as an official play. Yeah, these 10 random dudes that play at the YMCA. That's a matchup right there in basketball. Here, we're going to put on our college schedule. Yeah, we won 82-2. Yep. Wow, we're having a great season. We just played some random adults, not even a college team. Don't even know how that is now with waivers and everything and publicity. But, man, some of the things back in the day was crazy.
Have you ever heard, that kind of leads into, have you ever heard the origin of the Harlem Globetrotters?
Yeah, I've heard of them, but I'll let you talk about that.
Sorry, the Harlem Globetrotters actually started out of Illinois. They're not even from New York or the East Coast, but they used to do what they called, very ironic. They used to do what they called barnstorming tours, and you would put like an all-star team together and you would travel from town to town and you would play the best players from that town. If you guys remember the And One mixtape tour, it's the exact same concept. And so, you know, you show up with your dudes and you play the guys from the hometown or whatever. But so this promoter came up with the idea to put this team together, and he had a bunch of really good players, and they happened to be African-American players. And so they were based out of Illinois, but rather than saying that they were, you know, the Illinois Ramblin' Barnstormers or whatever, he made up this lie that they were from New York, that they were from Harlem, because they were basically an all-black team. And so they promoted it as if this team had come from New York to do this barnstorming tour in the Midwest, but they were actually just guys from Illinois, but they played the whole thing off. It was a brilliant promotional thing that lives to this day. But yeah, that's kind of what Drew's saying about the barnstorming thing. That's how the Harlem Globetrotters got started.
Well, there's one more last fun history fact that we could talk about before we move on. When the NFL did their 100 years of stuff and they were doing the NFL draft, in Indiana, where I currently live, is how do I say this? They were actually a professional NFL team in Hammond. And a lot of people don't know this, but they're called the Hammond Pros. Yes, Pros, that was their name. I know, nothing cool. I was hoping to be cooler. It wasn't that cool. So the Hammond Pros, anyways, so Papa Bear Stanley, the founder of the Chicago Bears, actually played wide receiver for the Hammond Pros. And the Hammond Pros used to play at Wrigley Field. And there's a lot of stuff there. But back in the early years, because I was watching some history about it, back when the NFL first started up, they wanted to, when they were rebranding everything, they said you have to put up a certain amount of money. And the Hammer Pros didn't do it, and nobody backed them up in the area. And I just laugh to this day because I'm like, Hammond, what? Because I feel like I'm also the same guy. Like, Hammond isn't, it is a city. It's not a big city like Chicago, where I go to, or even where Nick's at in Indianapolis. But one of the funny things, too, about Hammond is when I'm in Hammond, I forget how big it is. And then I go to, like, a little town, and I'm like, wait, that's it? It's only 3 blocks? And they're like, yeah, that's our town. And I'm like, this is a town? And then I even sometimes when I go to Chicago, I go to other bigger cities, and I'm like, you don't have 5 museums, 10 sports teams,
Right.
and you don't have, like, I just, comparison's a thief of joy, guys. And apparently Coach Drew does that everywhere he goes, because I'm a total, not a nice word. So, but it's fun. We're going to talk about it. You know, we're the Midwest Blitz. We're just talking about football. Maybe we'll mention that too, just because it's part of where I'm from, and maybe we'll do a little bit of fun stuff like that. But I mean, this is a Midwest goodbye as it's ever been. That's how I felt like when we're leaving Dickies.
The Hammond Pros, Coach Drew. I thought I had you ace with that Harlem Globetrotters story. Then you hit me with the Hammond Pros. That was a good one. I saw them at they had something at the Pro Football Hall of Fame about the history of football, and the Hammond Pros were mentioned in there somewhere when I was at the Hall of Fame.
Oh,
so,
I don't have the badge, but it was, my dad actually worked at where they called the NFL draft pick at the Hammond Sportsplex that was just built. And I actually have an NFL 100 pass that says draft. So it's pretty cool. He was there. He was working when it went on. It was actually to the Chargers, which is my second favorite team besides the Bears, and they traded to the Jets. And that guy no longer plays in the NFL. So I felt kind of bad because it was like, that was like the Hammond Pros pick. That was what they were trying to do. They're like, the Hammond Pros are being honored here. So the honorary Hammond Pro guy no longer is here. But maybe we can get him on the podcast, because maybe he's, you know, trying, maybe he has a different job and the honorary Hammond Pros. So I think it'd be kind of cool, honestly.
You need to call Antoine Randall, because we're going to do a history story about his Heisman, 5th place Heisman finish at Indiana his senior year. That's who I want to get on the show. That's my dream pick right now.
Well, the Bears are 4-2 right now, which I'm not going to talk about playoffs because I know better, but he's
a
kind of
little
busy
busy
right now.
He's a little busy right now, but in
This
the
is during the
off
off
season,
season. We're talking off season. Yeah.
and if we could get Twan on the show for 15 minutes, that would make my day, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a heck of a Midwest goodbye, Drew. Wanna go warm my car up, and then we can come back and talk for another 15 or 20 minutes. That's how a Midwest goodbye works in the wintertime, which we're not there yet, but we soon will be.
And then we also got to be like, hey, I heard your dryer making that weird noise. Let's go work on it for the next 4 hours.
You need your brakes changed. I heard your brakes. You need your brakes changed?
Yeah.
Go over to my house, bring a case of beer, we'll work on the brakes over the weekend. Another Midwest thing.
I hope you guys appreciate our Midwest and we're honesty. I mean, if you stayed here all the way through the time, I mean, the time mark's pretty deep in here. This is the deep end of the conversation, but there's people that stay here. On Fridays, we will be covering some fantasy football as that was pretty hot this week, and we're just talking football in general. And then
Hey,
Sundays, I'll be live.
If you're the guy who listened through the whole Midwest goodbye and went in the comment
That's
section,
not related to us.
the guy that we don't know, who's awesome, whoever you are, and you went into the comments and roasted the dude because he made fun of our podcast equipment, you're the best, man. I was like, there's no way anybody listened to the whole Midwest goodbye. And then somebody was listening, and I was like, hey, that's our guy right there.
Yeah, he talks about the golf equipment,
Right.
Which is a fun fact for everybody that wants to know. I actually did not post a short or anything on the medias besides the video of that thing. So that was a direct quote, and I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. That was fantastic.
Better than C-SPAN, better than the ESPN. We try to be authentic. Just like Keith Lee with food, we try to be like that with sports. And people like authenticity because there's too many fake people because we live in a fake world built in plastic, just like Barbie.
% Coach Drew. Well, might be time to end the Midwest goodbye so my computer doesn't die while we're measuring my arm length again. Like last time, my computer died. We were doing the arm length thing. If you guys were here for that, that was pretty humorous.
That was a grand time.
It was.
All right, Coach Drew signing off.
Big Nick signing off. Thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate spending the time with you and talking football. Later.
Later.